I understand those seats are a little uncomfortable, and that's why we got the cushions. I understand that might not be completely solving the problem. So what I'll do is when we get to the afternoon, either we'll take more breaks or we'll take at least a stretch break. So hopefully that'll get you just up and stretching a little bit, because I know it gets to be a long day. So hopefully that'll solve the issue. I apologize, but budgets were cut. All right, so y'all can have a seat, and we're ready to resume. Mr. Strolla?
Thank you, Your Honor. If it may please the court.
Yes, sir.
Counsel. Technician Kipple, good morning.
Good morning.
You talked a little bit about your training with Miss Corey, right?
Yes.
All right, but you didn't get into very detail. I'd like to do that with you. Do you recall your training?
Yes, I do.
And you've been a technician for about the last 6 years?
Actually, it's been closer to 8 now.
All right, but at the time of this case and your deposition, it was 6 or 7?
Yes.
Okay, and this case was back in 2012?
Correct.
All right, and at that point, you had been an evidence technician for 6 years, correct?
Yes.
And how long out of those 6 years were you a major case technician?
5.
Okay. And out of those 5 years, did somebody appoint you to be the primary on this case, or you just happened to be the first midnight guy showing up that night?
Yeah, how it was going to be an involved case, and I was just coming on, so it basically became mine.
Right. No sergeant, no supervisor appointed you. You were just the next guy in the rotation. Is that fair?
That'd be fair to say.
All right. And in your 6 years, you basically took a basic technician's training course, correct?
Yes.
You took a photo training course.
Yes.
Okay. You said you did a blood stain training course,
Yes.
a homicide training course,
Yes.
crime-scene reconstruction,
Correct.
and then something you called buried bodies.
Correct.
Okay. Did you use anything from your buried bodies training in this case?
Specifically off the top of my head, I can't say, oh yeah, I did this, but, all of that training together with whether it's packaging or collecting DNA, thought processes, all of it applies together to my job.
And isn't it true there's nothing specific you could have recalled from your homicide advanced training that you recalled off the top of your head that you applied to this case when you did your report? Isn't that accurate?
Well, it's not like I know everything in the book, but it teaches you skills, it teaches techniques, it teaches you ways to look at things, and all of that is just over years of experience and taking those classes.
All right, let me ask you this. Let's stick with the homicide. Isn't it true that's the only class you took that dealt with homicide investigation and the ballistics evidence you talked about today? The dowels.
No, not the homicide class. That was...
Okay, so where did you learn about the dowels?
Well, the dowel rods come in basically 2 of them. There's an introductory part of it that would be in the basic crime scene processing.
Okay.
And then it's focused a little bit more onto the other class, which is, the exact title is going to be the crime scene reconstruction, which just focuses on the crime scenes itself.
And that one, correct me if I'm wrong, that one was a 40-hour class?
Yes, it was.
And that was done here in Jacksonville through IPTM?
Correct.
And that's the Institute of Police Technology and Management.
Yes, it is.
And in that class, it's a 5-day class, 8 hours a day.
Yes.
You take breaks, you take lunches, things like that.
Yes, we do.
And in that 5-day course, isn't it true you only spent 1 day in training several years ago on what you just testified today about the dowels and the angles and things like that?
Yes.
And part of that were shooting at paper targets. Isn't that true?
Actually, no. Trajectory, you're not going to get anything from paper targets. We used a vehicle.
Well, now I'm asking you, part of that was inside a controlled environment of shooting. Is that correct?
It was a controlled environment, correct?
Right. And then the other half was basically classroom time.
Correct.
Okay. And that was prior to this case several years ago. Isn't that true?
Yes, it was.
Now, they don't teach you that the laws of physics are different for evidence technicians, correct?
Well, now you're speaking of the laws of physics and all that, and that really doesn't apply to what I do.
And that's what I'm saying. You're not trained in that, correct?
No, I am not.
You've never had a course on that.
No.
Do you understand what gravity is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, in some of your photos, I see these dowel rods. You actually see the dowel rod dip down and then go back up. Would you agree that that's not an accurate line?
On that particular one, I think you're talking about bullet strike number 3.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, and you could tell the jury, bullets don't travel down and then back up, correct?
No, what that trajectory rod does, and I think it's a fair and accurate representation of where the bullet entered and then the ending point of where the bullet struck.
So the rod really isn't relevant, it's front to where it ended.
Well, the rod's a visual that
Right.
gives a good visual determination of where it entered and where it went, but no, it's not a direct straight line.
And would you agree, in your training, bullets don't make right turns and left turns and go up and down? They travel in a straight line till they hit something, and then, like you said, they can ricochet.
At close distances, yes.
All right. Now, with gravity, if you put a rod in a hole, and let's say the hole is an inch big, that dowel is going to rest on the bottom, correct?
Well, if you look at the rods that I use, and I got different styles of rods and different holes from bullet strikes.
Right.
So what I use is the largest rod that I could that's going to fit that hole to size.
But those photos that we just looked at are accurate of exactly how the rods fit into the hole, correct?
Yes.
And on some of the photos, the ones on the front passenger door are extremely larger or more deformed than the ones on the back passenger door. Is that true?
Yes.
And again, with physics, if an object is moving one way and a bullet's traveling the other way, they're going to collide as they move. Isn't that true?
You're going to have to re-ask. I'm not quite sure what you're asking.
Do you have any training to tell this jury how a bullet would travel to a moving target?
Well, actually, yes.
All right, so I'm asking you, if a target is moving and a bullet goes into it, you have two forces colliding at the same time, correct?
Well, anytime a bullet strikes something, you have two forces colliding together.
But I'm talking about moving forces. If you have a target moving one way and a bullet coming the other way, you have two forces now intersecting, correct?
Well, if the target is moving, which a bullet travels much faster than what a vehicle would travel.
Right.
But yes, you do have a moving target, and then you do have a bullet, which is much, much faster.
And that could change the trajectory or make a larger deformed hole, in layman's terms.
I would think with the speed of the car compared to the speed of the bullet, I don't think it's going to make a difference whatsoever.
All right, was the car moving or stopped, that SUV, when those bullet holes happened on the back passenger door?
On the back passenger door?
Yes.
So you're asking me my expert opinion?
Was the truck moving or stopped?
On the back passenger door, I think the truck was stopped.
How about the front passenger door?
I believe the vehicle was backing up.
How do you figure that out if you just told this jury that the speed of the bullets are so fast it won't make a difference?
I could determine that by looking at the trajectory rods and knowing where the shooter is. The bullets that were on the passenger door are directly straight into the back, but the bullets on the front door are going in at an angle as if the vehicle was backing out. The shooter was at a still position shooting at the vehicle as it's going backwards, causing the angle.
Right, and matter of fact, you testified to Ms. Corey that those front angles were at a right angle, correct?
Yes.
And just for layman's terms, you're not talking about a 90-degree, what we'd call right angles in geometry. You mean the dowel rod was from the right, and that's the right angle, correct?
Well, as I described it in here, I'm not really saying a right angle, but as my report would dictate, it's basically a right diagonal.
Correct.
So a right angle is going to be a 90-degree, and that's not what we're saying here.
And
We're saying it
that's why
went into at a diagonal.
Sorry.
Hang on. Mr. Stroller, remember, one at a time.
And that's what I wanted to be clear, Technician Kipple. You're not saying that it's a right angle. It was just on a diagonal of the right, which shows in the pictures.
Correct.
Okay. Now, Ms. Corey did not ask you about the trajectory about the back door. Isn't it true in your report, based on your opinion, you said that it's almost at a direct angle?
Yes.
And that would mean almost a 90-degree angle straight into the door. Is that true?
I don't think you mean, I think you mean if it's straight in,
Yes.
that's going to be 180 degrees. That 180 would be a straight line.
Well,
90 would be an L.
No, my point, though, is if you have a straight line coming at you and it hits a flat object directly in front of it, if you did a math to it, it would be you'd have that L, straight bullet in and up, correct?
I see, yes,
And that's fair.
correct.
And again, that's in your report that you did right after this happened.
And I think you're talking about bullet strike number 1.
No, what I'm talking about, if you refer your report on page 2, bullet strikes 4, 5, and 6. That is the back passenger door, correct?
Correct.
Isn't it true that your report says the trajectory was almost at a direct angle?
Yes.
Okay. And that is just what we kind of explained to the jury with what we showed with our hands.
Yeah, and then it's almost, and I put that, there was a slight right trajectory entry. So there is a little bit of an angle, but almost directly forward.
Okay, and that's what I'm getting at. Where you didn't say that for the front passenger door. That one has a significant diagonal. The back is almost direct. And those are your words in your report.
Yes.
Okay. Now, you also said you had training in photography, and I noticed one of your photos states 30, where you actually took a picture of the child lock, is blurry. Is that, I'm sorry, you're shaking your head. Is that a yes?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. I saw the photo, and yes, it was blurry.
Okay. Did you only take one photo of that child lock?
Well, I don't think those were my photographs. I think Ms. Corey stated that that was Detective Whittlesey.
So Detective Whittlesey took that blurry photo. Do you recall?
Well, I took photographs of the door,
Okay.
and I didn't focus upon the door lock.
Okay.
So those photos of that weren't photos that were just trying to document that
And
door
you're
lock.
saying you believe it was the technician Whittlesey that took the blurry photo?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Miss Corey also said she words it closely with great care when she was talking about searching the trunk. Do you remember her asking you that?
Not specifically as you're putting it, but I remember her asking me that I searched the trunk.
Okay. We could always read it back if you like.
No, I'm just telling you, I remember her saying
Okay.
I searched the trunk.
Did you search it closely with great care?
Yes, I did.
Did you search that car closely with great care?
Yes, I did.
Then why did Detective or Technician Whittlesey find a fragment 4 days later after you processed the truck?
I overlooked that fragment during my initial processing of it.
And let me ask you this. You talked on scene and Miss Corey asked you, if the shooter had touched the truck, would you have done more work?
Yes, I would have.
Objection, that's not what we're asking, Jim.
It's not, but it's close enough, so it's overruled.
Would you have done some additional technician work based on other evidence at the scene?
Yes, I would have.
Okay. Does that include a second crime scene location?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
If Detective Musser had pointed out a second location for a crime scene, would you have processed that crime scene?
Yes, I would have.
And that's part of your normal duties.
For processing crime scenes?
Yes.
Yeah, that is my duty.
And that night, not one officer or homicide detective or sergeant told you to process anything other than that Durango and the chips and the wine that you got from inside, correct?
Well, I processed what was in the parking lot.
Right. As a matter of fact, you did that with Detective Musser during what we call a walkthrough.
Yes, I did.
And that walkthrough was about 5 or 10 minutes, correct?
Yes, it was.
And in that 5 or 10 minutes, he pointed out the Durango,
Yes,
he pointed out the casings on the ground,
correct.
and then somebody told you there's a bottle of wine and chips somewhere inside the store.
Yes.
Did anybody tell you to go to the other plaza parking lot to do any type of investigation?
I wasn't aware of any other scene.
It's not what I asked you. Did anybody tell you to go to the other plaza to do any type of investigation?
Nobody asked me to do that, no.
Now, you also said you took notes that night on a legal pad, kind of like we take down,
Yes.
and then you shredded those notes.
Yes, I did.
Now, I know Ms. Corey said you're allowed to do that, correct?
Yes, I am.
But at that point, once you shred those notes, there's no way to tell what was on your notes from what's in your report. Is that true?
Well, the notes that I take gets transformed onto my report.
But there's no way to verify that other than you because those notes are now gone. Isn't that accurate?
Correct.
Now, during this process of you taking photographs and putting the placards down, you're multitasking as an evidence technician, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm taking care of different things that pop up during the investigation.
Right, and even as you're walking around, you're getting pulled from one person here, we've got something over here, there's paint chips on the ground here. There's multiple things going on at one time.
True.
And that's all during your processing of the evidence, is that correct?
True.
You spent about 45 minutes to an hour photographing the scene, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And that's the photos we kind of saw through Ms. Corey?
Correct.
Now, Ms. Corey talked a little bit about the DNA testing and she put that into evidence. You've had training in DNA collection, correct?
Yes, I have.
And you use the FDLE standards, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement standards?
Yes, I do.
But you've never been trained through FDLE, isn't that true?
Well, I've had other training involving the collection of DNA for FDLE.
And is that also just through the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
And once again, I think I had it also, of course, in the basic introductory crime processing when we're showing the basics, and that's part of the basics.
Okay. And that was obviously when you first became a technician 8 years ago.
Yes, sir.
Now, the child locks on the back of that door, and I know it's a blurry photo, and to your recollection, that's not your photo, correct?
True.
Okay. Did, at any time, you alter the evidence on scene?
I don't alter any evidence at the scene.
Did you move anything? Did you move a casing? Did you place evidence anywhere other than what the photographs show?
Well, after I take the photographs,
Yeah.
I do collect it.
Correct. But my point is, you're not placing them down. You're putting the placards down where they are to show, to protect yourself, I didn't move anything, that's where I found it.
Yes, sir.
And if you had changed the child locks on the SUV, you would have to put that in your report, correct?
True.
You didn't do that.
No, I did not.
Did you see anybody alter the child locks on those car doors?
No, I did not.
Would you have allowed anyone to physically touch that car as you're processing it to alter it?
Not while it's in my control, no.
All right. And you were on scene before or after the homicide detectives?
I came after they arrived.
All right. So we also have other officers controlling the scene just for you.
Correct.
All right. And they called you out because we needed a major case worker for homicide that night.
Yes.
All right. And at that point, after you're on scene, you control that scene.
I'm partially in control with it with the
And
homicide
I
detectives.
mean the evidence. I don't mean the parking lot, sir.
Okay.
You're in control of the evidence.
Yes, I am.
That's your job.
Yes, sir.
Did you see or allow anyone to alter the evidence?
No, I did not.
When that car went on the tow truck, did you allow the tow truck driver to alter or manipulate that truck?
No, I did not.
If he would have, one, would you have stopped it?
Yes, I would have.
Would you have reported it?
It would have been documented in my report.
And it didn't happen.
No, it did not.
Okay. And you actually followed the car back to the warehouse, did you not?
Yes.
Okay. And it's in a controlled environment, as Ms. Corey said, where the only people that have entrance are the evidence technicians. Is that true?
Yes.
Even the homicide detectives, it's their evidence. They can't get in without you.
Yes.
At that point, when the car was coming off the tow truck, did anybody manipulate the evidence in the truck?
No.
If it had, you would have documented it.
Yes.
And you didn't document it because nobody messed with it.
Correct.
And when those photos were taken, was that truck in the similar condition it was from the gate gas station?
Yes, it was.
With the exception of the back window busted out more and things like that.
True.
And I guess the front passenger window folded over.
Well, I mean, you got to understand when it's on a flatbed truck and when they pull it up, it's going at an angle. And when they bring it back down, they got to bounce it kind of to get it back down. So, you know, minor things might move or minor things might shift around, but...
But nothing to actually alter those locks on the car.
Oh, no, no, sir. Nothing like that.
Okay. And when you left the vehicle, did you close the doors and secure it?
I just closed the doors.
Meaning so they were securely shut?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you came on scene, did you ever process or take photographs behind the gate gas station?
No, I did not.
Did you ever take any photographs or process or search the bushes next to the gate gas station?
No, I did not.
Did you ever go into the other plaza and take photographs or process anything in the plaza parking lot next to the gate gas station?
No, I did not.
And again, nobody told you to do that either.
Correct.
And you don't know what happened. You were not there when it did happen, correct?
I was not there when it happened.
You're just going based on the training you had and the experiences you've had as a technician.
Correct.
And again, the one homicide class you had several years ago, is that true?
I'm going off
And the
my years
crime
of
reconstruction?
training and being a police officer for 20 years.
But I'm even talking, well, you haven't been a technician for 20 years.
No, I have not.
You didn't have any training as a crime lab analyst for those 20 years, correct?
I am not a crime analyst.
And even as we sit here today, you don't have any training as a crime lab analyst or technician, correct?
No, I do not.
Just for evidence processing.
True.
And in that, you took a course several years ago to talk about these trajectories and angles and dowel rods, correct?
Correct.
And that was a 8-hour day of a 40-hour week.
Yes.
Now, isn't it also true that some of these fragments you cannot match to the projectile? Isn't that true?
That's not within my scope.
And you don't have that training or expertise, correct?
True.
You are not a ballistics expert, true?
No, I am not.
You've never testified as a ballistics expert, true?
No, I have not.
Now, there were some red paint chips I noticed on the ground on your photos. Did you preserve those red paint chips from the Durango that night?
No, I did not.
I noticed that Miss Corey showed you a little piece of plastic and you circled it and you said, oh, if it looks like a jigsaw puzzle. If you take it and you put it on there, it'll fit, right?
True.
Isn't that true with a paint chip? If it's a big enough paint chip, you might be able to tell exactly which hole it came from.
I suppose you could put a paint chip back if it's big enough and you find the right pieces.
Was it big enough to see on the photo you had in front of you?
You're going to have to show me that photograph.
So as you sit here today, do you recall seeing paint chips at all on the ground?
I didn't focus upon the paint chips.
Do you even know where those paint chips were lying in relation to where the SUV originally was?
No, I do not.
And again, you didn't preserve them or keep them.
Wouldn't see any reason why I would need to.
They weren't relevant to you that night.
No, they were not.
Now, Ms. Corey also showed some photographs of the back seat of the Durango. True?
Yes,
And you said I found no weapons under there. Isn't that correct?
correct.
Tell me what weapons were in that car before you got to the scene.
You're asking me to tell you what was in the vehicle before I was even there?
It's impossible, isn't it?
I wasn't there yet, sir.
Right. My answer to the question is yes, it's impossible.
True.
So if a weapon was in that car and it was gotten rid of, you could search it all day long and never find one, correct?
True.
If somebody takes a weapon and throws it into a bush and you don't look in that bush, you're never going to find it, are you?
True.
If somebody goes into a parking lot and throws a gun or a weapon under a car and you don't search that area, you're never going to find it, are you?
Well, weapons like that do show up and people do find them.
But you wouldn't
if
that
I
night.
wasn't, no, I wouldn't find it.
Right, because you weren't told to look there.
Correct.
And there's dumpsters behind the gate gas station and nobody told you to go look there either, right?
No, they did not.
And there's dumpsters and garbage cans to the plaza next to you where there's restaurants and nobody told you to go look there either.
Same answer. No, they did not.
After you left the scene that night, did you ever go back and process any other evidence at the gate gas station?
No, I did not.
And when Technician Whittlesley found that fragment that you missed in the back seat 4 days later, did you ever get called back to reprocess the vehicle?
No.
Judge, if I may just have a moment.
Sure.
The dowel rod you put on the back seat, and I believe that was State's Exhibit 95, showed the trajectory in the back. Do you recall that photograph?
There were 3 dowel rods that went through that door that went into the back seat.
Let me ask you this. Do you have any training or experience or knowledge to tell this jury how those bullets came through the door and affected Jordan Davis?
Basically, yes, I do.
Okay. How did those bullets go into Jordan Davis through that door? Where was Jordan Davis sitting?
Somebody fired a weapon that struck that door. The projectile went through that door, and somebody was sitting in that seat, and then they got struck by the projectiles that went through that door.
Okay. Have you reviewed the medical examiner's report?
No, I have not.
Do you even know how the bullets entered Jordan Davis's body?
Objection outside the scope.
Sustained.
Your Honor, if I may?
Sidebar?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sure. right, the objection was sustained, but Mr. Stroller, you can attempt to rephrase that question.
Technician Kipple, you have no requisite training or experience to say if somebody was sitting, standing, or where they were in that vehicle. Isn't that true?
You're asking me if I have training if somebody is sitting in a vehicle?
In terms of this case specifically, you do not have any training or experience to say where that person was and where they were hit with the bullets. Isn't that true?
Well, I haven't seen the autopsy report to basically line up the trajectories to where Mr. Davis was shot.
And that was my question. You never reviewed these reports, true?
That's, yeah, beyond the scope of my investigation.
And it's beyond the scope of your knowledge of this case.
True.
Nothing further, Judge.
Ms. Corey?
Nothing further, Your Honor. May he be excused?
Mr. Stroller, may he be excused? You want him subject to recall? All right.
Absolutely, and we'll stay in contact with him if he's needed by anyone else.
All right, then Detective, you'll just, you don't have to stay here in the building, obviously, but you are subject to recall, so that, whether that happens, we'll be in touch. But you're free to go for the remainder of today, probably. Thank you very much. State's next witness,
Detective William Whittlesey. Whittlesey?
Detective Whittlesey. Detective, if you'll come forward, please, sir. If you'll raise your right hand, the clerk will administer the oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, Detective. If you'll come this way and have a seat in the witness chair. And just be sure to speak loudly into the microphone so we can all hear you.
Okay.
Ms. Corey.
Yes, Your Honor. Tell these jurors your name, sir.
My name is William Whittlesey.
By whom are you, spell your last name for our court reporter.
It is Whittlesey.
By whom are you employed?
I'm with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office.
How long have you been a police officer with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
24 years.
What are your current duties?
I'm currently assigned to the Crime-Scene Unit.
Can you just briefly tell the jurors the other positions you've had with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office prior to becoming an evidence technician?
I've been in patrol, community policing unit, family violence unit, a couple other stints through patrol, and then to the crime scene.
And how long have you been an evidence technician in the crime scene unit?
It is 9 years.
And in all of your capacities as a law enforcement officer with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, do you have experience in responding to crime scenes?
Yes.
And have you become aware of what different types of ballistics are, specifically with regard to projectiles and fragments?
Yes.
Tell the jurors briefly about the training you had to become an evidence technician.
The training to be an evidence technician, I initially took a basic crime scene processing class, a 40-hour class that's usually offered through our academy or some other outlets. Once we get into the job, we have about a month of field training where we ride with one of the senior crime scene detectives just to learn more about responding to calls, what to look for, how to handle things once you get there. As you progress through your career as a crime scene detective, we eventually have a major case training. In that process, we learn to respond more to the major case is what we refer to as murders, police shootings, some of the most serious crimes we go to. We have usually a 2-week training where we specifically focus on that. And then in the in-between time, we have just different classes at different academies we go to include trajectory, bloodstain patterns, crime scene reconstruction, just some of those different classes.
Thank you, sir. And did you receive both basic and advanced training in preserving and maintaining such crime scenes?
Yes.
And also with regard to digital photography?
Yes.
And in the collection of evidence?
Yes.
Where were you assigned on November 27th of 2012?
As my regular duty as the crime scene detective.
And were you one of the major case ETs to respond to the JSO vehicle warehouse to assist homicide detectives Musser and Oliver?
Yes.
And does that pertain to the case of the death of Jordan Davis?
Yes, it does.
Do you operate under the same CCR number, the JSO official report number, in reporting your findings yourself or referring them to the lead evidence technician, Andrew Kipple?
Yes.
And so did you report such findings to him when you assisted in this case?
Yes.
And did you read his report and verify that what you told him is exactly what you did in this case?
Yes.
And did you review the photographs prior to coming to court today, both his photograph and your own, with regard to the piece of evidence that you recovered?
Yes.
Let me ask you one quick question just about ballistics evidence. Do you photograph, preserve, and package ballistics evidence the same way whether you're at a non-homicide scene or a homicide scene?
Yes, it's the same process for all of them.
If someone just fired some shots, even if they did it for fun, but you had to collect that evidence, would you do it the same way every time?
Yes.
Have there been occasions when in processing a lot of evidence at a crime scene or out of a vehicle that sometimes an evidence technician might miss something?
Yes.
Is that why photographs are taken to preserve what exists?
Yes.
All right, then. Were you assigned in that unit and were you requested to help those detectives, Musser and Oliver, on November 27th of 2012?
Yes, I was.
Okay. And tell the jurors where the JSO vehicle warehouse is located.
The JSO warehouse, where we have all our vehicles, is located at 1089 Haynes Street, just right down the road from where our office is. We have a large warehouse facility there.
So that's north of the Gator Bowl.
Yes.
Okay. And right off that main expressway?
Yes.
Is it a secure facility?
Yes, it
Who
is.
has the keys to that facility?
To our building, most of the keys are just within the evidence technician ranks for us to get access, and the warehouse personnel there.
All right. So the homicide detectives had to call you to get into there?
Correct.
To finish up their case. Okay. Now, is it the practice of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office for each officer to fully document the details of each case as it is handled?
Yes.
And are notes made as part of the normal course of your business?
Yes.
Are those notes then put into an official police report, whether your own supplement or combined with the major case lead ET supplement?
Yes, they are.
And would it aid you in your testimony to be able to refer to those reports if you need to today?
Yes.
What was the date and time of Detective Musser and Oliver's request for you to meet them at the JSO vehicle warehouse?
It was on the 27th, at 9:40 p.m. is when I was contacted by them.
And do you always have your equipment with you, your digital camera and those sorts of things in case something comes up?
Yeah, I have the basic battery of what I would need for most situations.
And did you speak with those two detectives, Musser and Oliver, prior to escorting them to the red Dodge Durango?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to show you a photograph that's been entered into evidence and testified to by Detective Kipple and ask you, sir, is this one of Detective Kipple's photograph showing the doors of the passenger side of the red Durango open?
Yes, it is.
On the back seat floorboard, right next to the door, do you see something that you saw yourself that day at the warehouse?
Yes.
And what do you see?
You can see the little pieces of what appeared to be what was found to be the projectile.
All right. And did the detectives bring that particular fragment to your attention?
Yes.
Okay. And then did you yourself take additional photographs
Yes, I did.
to document this? Between the time Detective Kipple took his photographs in the early morning hours of November 24th, 2012, and the time you all entered, did this vehicle stay under the care, custody, and control of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
Yes, it did.
And if Detective Kipple's photograph shows that door and that projectile in that location, and again, I'm referring to the back passenger door, does it differ in any way from what you saw 3 days later on the 27th?
No, it does not.
And did you take your own photographs?
Yes, I
Let me
did.
show you what's in evidence of State's Exhibit 45, sir, and show the jurors that piece of metal. Can you circle it on there?
Okay.
Okay.
Little finger's not working there.
And is that your sort of faraway view, a little bit closer than Detective Kipple's, but that same exact location?
Yes.
Did you move or manipulate that piece of metal at all?
Not for that picture.
Did
no.
you allow Detectives Musser or Oliver to touch it before you photographed it?
No, they did not.
And then the inset photo on this composite exhibit States 45, is that a close-up view of it?
Yes.
Okay. Let me take you then to States 46 in evidence. And is that the piece of metal fragment that you recovered, the projectile?
Yes, it is.
And did you term it a projectile versus a fragment?
Yes.
Tell the jurors why you called it a projectile.
The projectile is more the whole piece of the bullet.
And did you package this and preserve it for evidence in this case?
Yes.
Let me show you State's Exhibit 47. Is that your writing and the envelope in which you placed that projectile?
Yes.
Okay. And is that actually, from that view, the back of that bullet?
Yes, it is.
Okay. What did you do with this evidence?
After photographing and collecting it, packaged it in these envelopes and then submitted it into our property and evidence section.
May I approach defense counsel and then the witness?
Yes, ma'am?
States 193 in evidence. Detective Whittlesey, let me show you what's been entered into evidence of States 193 and ask you, sir, is that the projectile that was pointed out to you by Detectives Oliver and Muster? It's also depicted in States 47 in the prior photographs. Is that the same projectile?
Yes, it is.
And did you put this into the property room and preserve it for any potential processing by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. May I publish to the jury?
Yes,
Your Honor?
ma'am.
Did you remain there while Detectives Musser and Oliver looked at the car?
Yes.
Did you ever allow them to touch any specific items in that car?
Their intentions were to look at something with the doors, but I didn't have any involvement with that. I was just in the area when they were doing it.
You stayed there while they did. Did you secure the car and the warehouse after you all were finished?
Yes.
Okay. And did you find, in your view of looking into this car, any type of weapon whatsoever?
No, I did not.
If any weapon had been discovered, would you have photographed it and placed it in the property room just as you did this last piece of evidence?
Yes, we would have.
Your Honor, I have no more questions at this time.
Mr. Stroller?
Sorry.
Technician Whittlesey, tell me what weapons were in that car on November 23rd, 2012.
I have no knowledge of that.
Did you even report to the crime scene that night?
No, I did not.
Had you ever seen that Durango until November 27th, 4 days later?
Correct.
And you were contacted at 7:40 at night by Detective Oliver, isn't that correct?
Yes.
Now, you didn't do a report in this case, did you?
I've relayed my information to Detective Kipple.
Do you have Detective Kipple's report in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Can you go to page 3?
Okay.
Do you see the paragraph where it indicates 11/27/12 at 19:40 or 7:40 p.m.?
Yes.
Is that the information? Go ahead and read it to yourself, not out loud. Tell me, is there any information missing from that report that relates to you, sir?
No.
And in that report, you indicated that Detective Oliver was the only one with you. Isn't that true?
I said that I was contacted by Detective Oliver.
Right. And Detective Musser isn't even in that report, is he?
I didn't list everybody that was there, but like I said, I've just listed who contacted me and what began my involvement in this case.
Right. But you never told, obviously, your fellow technician that Musser was there. He would have put it in his report, correct?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained.
Let me ask you this. Isn't it true you told Technician Kipple that it was Detective Oliver that found the fragment on the back seat? Or the back floor, I apologize.
Yeah, I believe it was reported that they found it, brought it to my attention, and then I dealt with it from there.
So even as an evidence technician, you didn't see it. The Detective Oliver was the one that found it. And that's according to what you told Technician Kipple, true?
He found it because they were coming to check the car. I was just the person to let them in the warehouse at that
Okay.
point.
Let me rephrase my question. Isn't it true that Detective Oliver found the fragment? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. And isn't it true they were there to check the child safety locks on the back of that car?
Yes, that's what I was advised.
I'm sorry?
That's what they advised me they were coming there to do.
Okay. Now, when they found, or Detective Oliver found the fragment, did he take photographs of it, or did you take photographs of it?
I did.
Did he process it, or did you process it?
I did.
And that would be your job, correct?
Yes.
Now, did they check those door locks while you were there?
Yes.
Detective Oliver did not manipulate those door locks, did he?
I didn't stand over them in the process of the work that they came to do.
So are you saying you've got sole custody and care of that as a technician, and you're not watching if they're altering the evidence?
I,
Objection to the form of the question, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Were you watching what they were doing when they were looking at the car?
as the lead detectives, they went to go verify information with the car. I was letting them do what they came to do.
Okay, that wasn't my question. Did you watch what they were doing?
I was in the area, but no, I did not stand over their shoulders.
Okay, so you have no idea what they did or what they touched. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Did they ever ask you to photograph any child safety locks?
I don't recall.
Okay. You do recall taking the photos and processing the fragment, though,
Yes.
and you're saying now you have no recollection if you took any photographs of a child safety lock.
I'd have to review all the photographs that I took that day, and if they asked me to do it, there would have been a photo taken.
Judge, if I may have a second?
Sure.
Would it refresh your recollection to actually look at your deposition where I asked you about that?
Okay, yes, that would.
Judge, and just for the record, if I can approach, I'm showing the deposition from June 5th, 2013. My page is going to be 109, lines 9 through 12. If I can approach, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Sir, this is just going to be to refresh your recollection, so please don't read it out loud. But let me ask you this. Do you recognize your name on this deposition?
Yes.
Do you recall taking the deposition June of 2013 where I asked you questions?
Yes.
Okay. Just go ahead and read 9 through 13 to yourself, not out loud. Tell me if that refreshes your recollection, sir.
Okay.
Did that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay. Isn't it true that Detective Oliver never ordered you to take photographs of those child locks?
Correct.
So it's safe to say, as we sit here today, you've never photographed the child locks, either one side or the other. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if there's any pictures of child locks, it would have to be somebody else and not you.
Well, I said I'd have to look at the photographs to completely have that verified, and I said I haven't gone over all the photographs concerning anything besides the projectile.
But you just refreshed your recollection. Is your testimony different from June 5th than today?
If you'd like for me to give you the full, correct, verified answer to that question, I'd have to review all the photographs that I took that day.
Sir, again, I'm going to refer to page 109 of your deposition, 9 through 13. Those are the lines you just read. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Isn't it true I asked you, but do you recall that Detective Oliver never ordered you or asked you to take photos of the door locks, nothing like that, and your answer was correct?
If I viewed the photographs at that time, or if I saw that, that's what it is. If I could see the photographs now, I would be able to verify that answer.
So you're telling me on June 5th, 2013, when you swore to tell the truth in a depot, you don't know if you were telling the truth?
Objection to the form of that question, asked and answered.
Sustained.
Nothing further, Judge.
May I?
Yes, ma'am.
Detective Whittlesey, if anybody had told you that the child locks were going to become an issue at any point in this case, would you have taken photographs of them?
Yes.
And so you photographed what was seen by Detective Oliver with Detective Musser somewhere, and you took that photograph and put that object into evidence.
Your
Is
Honor,
that
I'm
correct?
going to object to leading counsel testifying.
Apologize for leading.
Sustained.
Did you take that object and put it into evidence?
Yes, I did.
And had you been alerted that there was anything to do with the child locks, would you have taken photos?
Yes.
Otherwise, did you know that Detective Kibble had taken 260-plus photographs of that vehicle?
Yeah, I had no idea how many pictures he had already taken.
All right, thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
May he be excused?
He may.
Mr. Stroller, may he be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, Detective.
Thank you.
One short one?
Pardon?
Do you want one short witness?
That'd be great. State call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Deputy Siniscow.
Siniscow, Deputy Siniscow. Good morning, Deputy. If you'll come forward for me, please, right to the front here, and raise your right hand. The clerk will administer the oath to you, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, Deputy, if you'll come right around this way for me and have a seat in the witness chair. Thank you, sir. Good morning. And if you just get yourself comfortable, and you can adjust that microphone as you need, speak directly into it, and keep your voice up so we can hear you. Ms. Wolfson?
Good morning, Deputy. Could you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Carmine Siniscal, Siniscal.
Deputy, where are you currently employed?
Brevard County Sheriff's Office,
How long have you worked for Brevard County Sheriff's Office?
7 years.
Do you have any prior law enforcement prior to being at Brevard County Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
And could you tell the jury what that is?
I have over 14 years with Melbourne Beach Police Department and 11 years with a department, Bricktown in New Jersey.
Now, Deputy Siniscal, at Brevard County Sheriff's Office, what is your current position?
Patrol.
Are you assigned to a particular zone or area of Brevard County?
Yes, I am.
And what zone is that?
It's a 62 zone.
Could you describe for the jury what area of Brevard County that is?
It's south of the Space Center.
And Deputy Siniscal, just to give some sort of reference, could you also describe to the jury where Brevard County is in relation to Duval County?
It's about 167 miles south.
And approximately how long then of a drive is that?
Close to 3 hours.
Now, Deputy Siniscal, I'd like to turn your attention back to November 24th of 2012. Were you working on patrol that day for Brevard County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, I was.
And what shift were you working?
62 zone, which is from O'Galley Boulevard down to Fifth Avenue, that's Satellite Beach, and down to Fifth Avenue and in the Atlantic.
And were you working a certain range of hours that day?
10 hours.
Okay, and what time did you come on duty?
Just a moment, please. All right, sorry, Ms. Wilson.
And Deputy, I believe my last question was, what time did you come on duty that day?
6 in the morning.
During your shift, did you eventually come into contact with someone later identified to you as Michael Dunn?
Yes, I did.
Do you see Michael Dunn here in court today?
He's sitting at the defense table.
And could you describe something he is wearing?
He has a maroon sweater, a white shirt, and a
Let the-
maroon tie.
I'm sorry, let the record reflect the deputies identified the defendant.
Now, how is it that you ended up getting involved with someone by the name of Michael Dunn?
It was passed on to me by Sergeant Harold, who was on the night shift that morning.
And what did you learn, I guess, from your conversation with Sergeant Harrell?
That we had a person in our area that was wanted in Jacksonville.
Did you learn at some point what the defendant was wanted for?
Yes,
Let me back up, actually. Was the person who was wanted Michael Dunn?
yes,
Okay, and did you learn eventually what he was wanted for?
yes,
Did you also learn at some point that an arrest warrant had actually been issued for him out of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
yes, I did.
And what was that arrest warrant for?
Murder and attempted murder.
Now, Deputy, is a warrant for murder and attempted murder considered a high-risk arrest warrant?
Yes.
Could you explain to the jury what that means?
That means there's a likelihood that some type of danger or assault could happen on the person serving that warrant.
And based on the nature of that warrant, then, do you as the deputy take extra precautions in serving that arrest warrant?
Yes,
Now, that morning on November 24th of 2012, did you ever speak with any members of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
Detective Moser?
Detective Musser?
Musser.
Sound familiar? And did
Yes.
you learn then that he was a homicide detective from Jacksonville Sheriff's Office?
Yes,
When you spoke with him over the phone, were you able to get pertinent details to the whereabouts of the defendant?
that information was given to my sergeant at the time, Sergeant Szynski, and they worked out the details.
Okay, and Deputy, at some point that morning then, did you respond to 257 Oceans Residence Court in Satellite Beach?
Yes, I did.
And is that address then within your zone?
Yes, it is.
Who all did you respond to the scene with?
I went with the Sergeant Szynski, and Quintana, Deputy Quintana.
Okay, so Quintana then is another deputy?
Yes.
Within your force? Now, when you all arrived on scene, did you have a plan in play for how you were going to approach the residents?
Yes, we did.
Could you explain to the jury what that plan was?
Deputy Quintana was to the rear of the residence. I was to the southwest corner of, there's a clump of condos. And the sergeant was to the northwest corner of the condos.
And Deputy, I'm showing, it should be up on your screen, State's Exhibit 98. Is there a photograph in front of you?
Yes,
And is this then a photograph of the condos that you were just describing to the jury?
yes.
Could you put an X on the approximate location then of where you were, if it's on the screen?
An X?
Actually,
Yes,
sir, if
you
you
can touch.
touch the screen, put some pressure on it, you can actually
Oh, okay.
draw on that screen. There you go.
I was there. Sergeant would be further north of that, like out of this actual photograph.
And could you, just to reference the jury, could you explain to the jury if north would be to the right or to the left of where you
The
are?
north would be to the left, towards 257 would be the north, and 259 would be the south.
Okay. And then in this picture as well, then where would Deputy Quintana have been?
She was to the rear of the condos itself, the ocean side.
Okay. Now, when you arrived on scene, did you all have any sort of firearms on you?
Yes, we did.
And what did you yourself have with you that morning?
I had an AR-15.
And was that because of, as you explained to the jury, it's a high-risk arrest warrant?
Yes,
Now, Deputy, once you arrived on scene, did you actually then make contact with the defendant over the
Yeah.
phone?
yes,
Okay, and when you called him over the phone, did you then give him specific orders about how to come out of the house?
yes, I did.
And could you tell the jury what those orders were that you gave him that morning?
I told him to come out without the shirt on and his hands in the air,
And why did you ask the defendant to come out without his shirt on?
because I wanted to see in his waistband to make sure there was no weapons there.
Now, after you spoke with the defendant over the phone, did he then come out of this complex?
Yes, he did.
And did he actually come out of 257?
No,
Did he come out of a unit, several units down?
yes,
And did you later learn that that was actually a neighbor's unit?
yes.
What happened? What did the defendant do when he came out of that unit?
He complied, came out with his hands up, and Sergeant Szynski ordered him to his knees.
And once he was on his knees, Deputy, did you and Deputy Quintana then handcuff him?
Yes, we did.
And is that normal procedure when an arrest warrant has been issued?
Yes,
Once the defendant was handcuffed, did you then place him in the back of your patrol car?
after I searched him, he was placed in the back of my vehicle.
And eventually then, Deputy, did you transport the defendant to the West Precinct office of the Brevard County Sheriff's Office?
Yes, I did.
Did you have any contact then with Jacksonville homicide detectives?
Not that I can recall.
Okay. Once the defendant was at the West Precinct, then did you turn him over to other personnel from your staff?
Yes, I did.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Mr. Strolla, any questions?
Yes, Your Honor, please. Deputy Szynski, how are you, sir?
I'm good, and you?
Good. Now, again, high-risk situation, you don't know Mr. Dunn, correct?
Correct.
Never met him before.
Never.
And in your line of work, it'd be very dangerous trying to take someone like that into custody.
Yes,
Bad things happen all the time when you try to arrest somebody, don't they?
Yes.
People don't like it. Would you agree?
Oh, I agree.
Okay. Some people get violent.
Yes.
Some people shoot at officers. None of that
Yes.
happened with Michael Dunn, did it?
No.
Matter of fact, were you on the phone with him?
Yes.
And when you talked to him, what did he say?
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Let me ask you
Sustained.
this. Let me rephrase it. Based on your conversation, did Mr. Dunn comply with your orders?
Yes.
Did he show any signs of disrespect to you?
No.
Any type of anger towards you?
No.
Any type of violence, verbal violence towards you?
No.
Did he do exactly what you asked him?
Yes, he did.
He removed his shirt.
Yes.
He came outside.
Yes.
And he actually came outside from his neighbor's house, correct?
Yes.
And you took a sworn statement of that neighbor, correct?
Yes.
Objection, Your Honor, outside the scope.
Sustained.
Let me ask you this. Based on your investigation and based on what you witnessed, did Michael Dunn ever show any signs of violence towards law enforcement?
No.
Any type of disrespect?
No.
Any type of anger?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
At any point prior to him being ordered to the ground, did he follow everything you asked of him?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
Did he do everything Sergeant Sosinski ordered him to do?
Yes.
When you took him and put him in handcuffs, any issue there?
No.
No signs of violence or resistance when you put him in handcuffs?
Objection, asked and answered.
Sustained.
Is there anything that you can recall Mr. Dunn did in your presence that showed any type of resistance or violence?
Objection, asked and answered.
Judge,
Sustained.
how long were you with Mr. Dunn?
May I look at my
If you
report?
need to refresh your recollection, please do.
Approximately an hour and a half?
And that you were with Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
And in that hour and a half, no issues?
No.
Complied with everything you asked of him?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
I'll let him ask that last one. Go ahead, Detective.
Did he comply with everything that was asked of him by yourself or your agency in that hour and a half period?
Yes.
Now, you had contact with Miss Rhonda Rower, is that correct?
Objection, outside the scope.
Sustained.
Well, let me ask you this. Isn't it true that there was contact with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office out at that house?
Yes.
Okay. And that's while you were there as well?
I came back at one point to relieve someone, I believe.
And that's when you met Detective Musser?
I'm not sure if I met him or not.
Okay, but
There
Jacksonville...
were people there. I don't know if I actually met him. I don't recall.
Okay. There were, though, detectives from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office there?
Yes.
And Miss Rhonda Rower was there?
I don't recall seeing her then.
Do you want to look at, would it refresh your recollection, look at page 3 of your report?
She was there on,
Hang on. Oh,
Objection, Your Honor, this line of questioning is once again outside the scope of that.
Sustained.
One moment, Judge.
Sure.
Did you do anything else in terms of Mr. Dunn in that hour and a half? Other than what you've already testified to here?
I wrote the arrest report, the 92301, the probable cause affidavit.
Okay, and that was based on the warrant for the murder in Jacksonville?
Correct.
Okay, and at that point, you weren't going to let Mr. Dunn go?
No.
You weren't going to ask him his side of the story because it was out of Jacksonville, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further, Judge.
Anything, Ms. Wilson?
Just briefly, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Deputy, when the defendant came out of the house, was he surrounded by law enforcement officers with assault rifles?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Judge.
Maybe
Just very briefly?
all right. That's going to be one question, right?
Yes. How many officers actually were there to arrest Michael Dunn in terms of the physical takedown?
3.
Okay. So that was he was surrounded by 3 officers?
Now, Mr. Stroller,
So I
I
just
said
want to
one
clarify.
question, didn't I?
Sorry, Judge, one extra question then if I may.
And now you just repeated what he already said.
I just want to make sure that was the total there, Judge.
I think the man said 3.
All right.
But I'm gonna let you ask one more question.
Last question. Was that the total officers there arresting Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Judge.
Thank you.
Nothing
May he be
further.
excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Wolfson. Thank you, Deputy. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes, let me see, the counsel and that side. Gentlemen, lunchtime. We will break until 5 minutes after 1, gives you an hour. Again, don't talk about the case among yourselves. Don't let anybody talk about the case to you or in your presence. We'll watch over your notes. See you back in an hour.